ceremony. So once we are done at 11, around 11, we will have our coffee and tea upstairs in the second floor in the conference room, the room that you were last day, yesterday. And we will have another panel there. And then that will be all for today. And then we will have a roundtable discussion session in the Ottoman Hall. We will have a mini debate by some of you. You know, I don't know who is gonna debate, but we will pick some of you. You are gonna enjoy it. I promise you. And the first panel for today is going to be about the ninth panel of the day is going to be about religion, psychology, and social influence in contemporary context. We have special guests, and one of those guests is of course chaired by Associate Professor Hatice Koçkanja, who is Professor of Islamic Psychology at Ankara Hacı Bayram Veli University and currently studying at Yale University for her postdoc as a visiting scholar. And we have three panelists today, three presenters, Melisa Sarıtemur, Ismail Uzer, and Lukman Lucas Crawley. And we will listen to their insightful presentation, hopefully. And I hope you will enjoy it, both to our in-person audience and to online audience. Welcome again to the DCA Graduate Student Symposium. And please join me in welcoming our guests and our chair. Yep.
University in Political Science and International Relations. The title of her paper is an analysis of the religious dimension of lobbying. You have 3 minutes, right? Please respect the time limit. Yes, microphone is yours.
Welcome. I'm Melisa Sarıtemur. I'm a master's student, political science and international relationship, Istanbul University at Turkey. And today I will present my research on the religious dimension of lobbying. Lobbying is a legitimate advocacy activity in modern democratic systems that enable the translation of diverse societal demands into decision-making process. However, the involvement of religious values and actors in this process raises significant debates regarding the role of religion in the public sphere. All these discussions demonstrate that religiously based lobbying, a relatively new concept in political science, drawn from diverse disciplines. Therefore, a broad perspective is necessary to highlight the emergence of the concept, its related fields, key authors, authors, and countries. This study employs bibliometric analysis. The aim of this study is not only to present a theoretical discussion, but also to systematically examine the academic literature in the field using bibliometric analysis. In this regard, it's aimed to reveal in which disciplines studies on religious lobbying are concentrated, in which countries they are produced, and what important gap exists in the literature. Furthermore, analyzing the development of the concept over time and how it has been addressed in different academic contexts is among the main objectives of study. Finally, while discussing the ethical and legitimacy dimension of religious lobbying, the study aimed to provide guidance for future research by presenting the general framework of academic production of this field. Religious lobbying is defined in modern political science literature as a planned and systematic communication process aimed at influencing decision makers. These activities may aim to defend individual or collective interests, or they may seek to influence social norms through the instrumentalization of religious discourse. While current research indicates that lobbying is one of the institutionalized form of democratic participation, it also emphasizes that its legitimacy is dependable depending on its aim and methods. Religious lobbying is defined in modern political science. Sorry. Religious-based lobbying depends these debates by examining the boundaries between rights-based advocacy and narrow interest lobbying. In this context, studies in the field of lobbying and advocacy are addressed through two main approaches. Green, in analyzing global campaign, notes that rights-based advocacy and narrow interest lobbying are conducted with different strategies. A rights-based advocacy focuses on protecting the fundamental rights and freedom of individuals, while narrow interest lobbying prioritizes economic and political interests. Within this framework, understand the limits of religious lobbying both legitimately and ethically is crucial for democratic pluralism. The theoretical framework of this study is based on approaches that explain the relationship between religion and the public sphere. In this context, theories of secularization and pluralism are particularly addressed. The secularization approach argues that the influence of religion in the public sphere has decreased in modern societies, while the pluralism approach emphasizes that different beliefs can coexist in the public sphere. Studies on the relationship between religion and the public sphere show that religion is not only a realm of individual belief, but also an important mechanism for the production of social values and norms. The secularization and pluralism perspectives interpret the role of religion in the modern public sphere in different ways. In this context, Bruce and Tyler argue that secularization has reduced the influence of religion in the public sphere. In contrast, Habermas and Casanova consider the participation of religious groups in public debates legitimate within the framework of pluralism. These, theoret- these theoretical Discussions provide a fundamental basis for understanding the limits, legitimacy, and potential areas of abuse of religious lobbying. Research questions. What are the main themes of these concepts? What are the fields related to topic? Who are the important authors on this subject? What are the important countries involved in this topic? Method and findings. Within the scope of the bibliometric analysis and initial initial search was conducted in the Web of Science database. In the search, the terms lobby and pressure group were combined with religion in the topic field, resulting in a total of 137 studies. Subsequently, a selection process was carried out to enable a more detailed analysis using the bibliometrics and biblioshiny packages are as well as Viber software. In this context, 121 articles out of the initial 137 studies were included in the analysis. The findings revealed these articles were associated with 20 different research fields. Among these, the five most prominent fields were identified: religion, law, political science, history, and philosophy. These results clearly indicate that the relationship between religion and lobbying activities has a strongly interdisciplinary character. Findings: annual scientific production, average per use, most relevant sources, most relevant authors, country scientific production, most cited countries, most global cited documents, large frequency over time, development degree, and conclusion. Looking at the broader trends revealed by the analysis, several key patterns emerge. First, the number of studies peaked around 36.36%, sorry, marking a clear turning point. This shift appears to be closely linked to same-sex marriage decision in the United States, which intensified academic and public interest in the intersection of religion and lobbying. Following this period, there has been a notable increase in demands for religious exemptions. At the same time, religious lobbying has increasingly been framed not as a conventional interest group activity, but rather as an advocacy effort centered on the freedom of belief. In terms of geographical distribution, the publication originated from the United States. Of the top five contributing countries are the United States, the United Kingdom, Italy, Australia, and Canada. This indicates a strong concentration of research within Western liberal democracies. Consistent with this pattern, the leading academic fields involved are religion, law, and political science. Another important finding is that the debate tends to be framed more in legal and regularly terms rather than theological ones. This is also reflected in the prominence of the keyword populism within the literature. Finally, the analysis points to mutual relationship between the religious lobbying group and right-wing populist leaders, suggesting an ongoing interaction that shapes both political discourse and policy debates. Finally, several broader conclusions and future directions can be drawn from the analysis. First, the existing literature is largely Western-centered. Regions such as Asia, the Middle East, and Africa remain significantly underrepresented, pointing to an important geographical imbalance in the field. In total, only 121 studies have been published. This indicates that the field is relatively unique. However, despite its limited size, it demonstrates a high level of impact within academic discussions. Based on the findings, several research recommendations can be proposed. There is a clear need for more comparative studies that examine different regional and political contexts. In addition, expanding the terminology used in the field could provide new analytic perspectives. Concepts such as religious civil society, faith-based organizations, and sex-state relation may help broaden the scope of the future research. At the same time, the analysis highlights several key gaps in the literature. They include limited attention to finding structure, the role of informal political networks, and the nature of international connections among religious lobbying actors. Looking ahead, one of the most important areas for future research is the analyzing of money and power relationship within religious lobbying. A deeper understanding of this dynamic could significantly enhance our knowledge of how influence is exercised in this domain. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Miss Melissa. Any question you would like to ask about? Okay, Miss Melissa highlights the. Oh, yeah. You have your microphone, right?
Assalamu alaikum. This is an important subject for me because I work at American Civics Institute and we have a lobbying arm, 501c4. We're generally a 501c3, but fractional 501c4. And we do lobby the government. But the 501c3 aspect of it educates people. So we have a conference room on Capitol Hill and we invite senators and congressmen, generally of a certain persuasion, people I like, who to come for lunch, and we give them a presentation like this about energy, about education. And we try to stay very far away from a religious lobbying. Religious lobbying is very scary. I'm a Republican. I've been a Republican for 40 years, over 40 years, from Columbus, Ohio. And the religious lobbyists are scary because they're angry, because they're emotional, because they're fascist. Single-minded is the word. Single-minded is the phrase I'm looking for. And so when they're single-minded, it's very hard to talk to them. Okay. I work for a particular government far, far away as a lobbyist in the energy field. And with that, we certainly don't go into religion at all. And I have to stay very, very secular when I'm approaching anything. And when they ask a religious question or something that relates to social aspects of it, I say, I don't know, but I know. And it makes me angry. And I can't use anger. I cannot use anger. You cannot use anger, according to the Prophet Muhammad, and it just makes common sense. So what's my question? I'm sorry, I don't mean to give you a speech. I apologize. What's my question? My question is, how can I rectify? How can I think pluralism approach makes more sense for me as an American, okay? Pluralism approach, that your definition up there really hit home for me, because you say, you know, you have to include everybody. You know, you can't leave someone out. You can't leave the Jews out. You can't leave the Muslims out. It can't be all Christian. I think the pluralism approach works best for our group of people. You know, we're Muslim. We identify as Muslim. We're not going to identify as anything else ever. And the pluralism approach works. May I have your comment on that? Sorry, I'm sorry if I spoke too long.
But firstly, I have to clarify something. You said some people are, angry about it. Who is angry? Those people who are exposed to lobbying, or those people who are making lobbying? Which was angry at it? Yeah, please clarify it.
The people who are the lobbyists use a fascist, angry approach to discuss their point of view, that their single-minded view is exactly right and it's from God. And it's hard to argue against that when there's 10 of them and they're very passionate. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the clarifying this. After our session, Miss Melissa will answer you. Please give her a little bit of time for reading your question. Thank you, Miss Melissa. She's highlighted a critical point. Religious groups sometimes prioritize seeking special legal exemptions for themselves, especially when active in politics, rather than genuinely representing their faith or the public good. You know that, yeah. And maybe by suggesting that we should look beyond the Western based concepts, or Western based term like lobbying, and I think we explore how these dynamics function in the other regions like Middle East, such as Middle East or Asia, using concept like civil society or faith-based organization. And our author provides an excellent roadmap for our future research in this field. Thank you so much. And our second presentation will be delivered by Ismail Uzer. He's an independent researcher. His paper is titled Bridge Between Health and Faith, the Paradigm of Spiritual Well-Being in Wellness Tourism. Okay, microphone is on. Go ahead.
Excuse me. My name is Ismail Uzer, and I am participating in this symposium as an independent researcher. I would like to extend my greetings once again to one of our symposium chairs, Associate Professor Hatice Koç Kanca, and to all of you distinguished researchers. I also wish to express my the tweet to the Diyanet Center of America, its Director Associate Professor Fatih Kanja, and the staff for providing this opportunity. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am currently an official at the Diyanet Center of America. My research focus is on wellness tourism. My title of my presentation, A Bridge Between Health and Faith, the paradigm of spiritual well-being in wellness tourism. My presentation will center on wellness tourism, a sector that often faces conceptual confusion and has yet to find its precise place within the tourism industry. Despite being one of its most significant stakeholders. Alternative tourism. The perception of tourism manifests almost everywhere in the world as sea, sand, and sun. People have begun searching for alternative tourism activities and recreation areas such as thermal tourism, supported by curious gastronomy and health, among many other examples. Types of alternative tourism: hunting tourism, winter and mountain tourism, botanical tourism, underwater diving, golf tourism, river tourism, rafting, yacht tourism, bird watching tourism, green tourism, trekking, health tourism, pet tourism. Stakeholders in alternative tourism: tourists, public institutions and organizations, police, natural touristic reaches, the general structure of the tourism sector, the cultural sector of the local population. To understand wellness tourism properly, one must first have a clear understanding of health tourism. If it's necessary to distinguish health tourism categories in terms of their objectives and applications. Health tourism, medical tourism, thermal tourism, spa wellness, elderly care, and displayed tourism can be grouped under the headings of medical tourism. This is a recreative process. The individual is already ill and travels for specific medical treatments such as surgery, dental procedures, or aesthetics treatments. Thermal tourism, rooted in ancient tradition. This involves the use of thermal waters and cures for relaxation and healing, often categorized under spa wellness or well-being. Spa wellness, this is a proactive approach. The primary goal is not medical intervention, but rather maintaining health, delaying aging, and preserving mental and physical balance. Elderly care and disabled tourism. This branch of tourism is a subsector of health tourism that encompasses third-age tourism, generally covering individuals aged 50 and over, as well as services aimed at individuals with physical disabilities. Wellness tourism, the word wellness on the other hand means wellness, feeling good or well-being, although it doesn't have an exact equivalent in Turkish. Wellness, which originated in United States of America, is a lifestyle philosophy based on improving the health of the body, soul, and mind by keeping them in balance. Wellness tourism, the term wellness was introduced by Halbert in 1959 by combining the English words well-being, feeling good, and fitness, staying in shape. It includes practices performed by individuals without health problems in order to feel good. Major destination exams, religious hubs, Mecca, Medina, cultural and historical centers, Turkey, Indonesia, Morocco, Spain, Istanbul, Konya, Indonesia. Halal concept, coastal tourism, the Aegean and Mediterranean coasts of Turkey, along with halal-friendly facilities and Malaysia and the Maldives. Islam, etymologically, the word Islam is derived from the Arabic root salam, encompassing meanings such as peace, well-being, security, and the attainment of salvation. Summary of the relationship between wellness tourism and spiritual well-being in Islam, holistic approach. Islam treats the human being as an integrated whole of soul and body. This perspective contributes to modern wellness practices by emphasizing that physical healing must be supported by mental and spiritual tranquility. In conclusion, spiritual counseling has become an important wellness practice in hospitals and community settings, supporting both mental and physical well-being. In Islam, spirituality promotes social harmony and holistic health by integrating body, mind, and soul. Estaizu billah, unquestionably by the remembrance of Allah, the hearts find satisfaction. Sadakallahul Azim. Thank you so much.
Any question you would like to ask about? Author Ismail Uzer, thank you so much for this amazing presentation. This article is highly valuable for moving tourism beyond the superficiality of sun, sea, and sand and transforming it into a spiritual journey of purification. Actually, he is he presented a model like integrated with historical and spiritual values instead of the modern consumption oriented tourism. Actually, it offers a new and powerful vision for the tourism industry. Thank you for this amazing model and definition. Tourism is not merely as a rest, but as a process of evaluation, like maturation. It adds a profound and human dimension to the industry's perspective. Thank you so much. And our last presentation will be delivered by Lokman Lucas Crowley. Did I do it correctly? Thank you so much. I was so excited about it. Thank you. His affiliation is University of Maryland. His paper is titled Why Liberation Isn't Enough, a comparative study of critical pedagogy and Islamic metaphysical purpose. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good afternoon. First, I want to give gratitude and thanks to the administrators of this symposium for allowing me to present my research here today. As she said perfectly, my name is Lukman Lucas Crowley, and this presentation was adapted from my academic paper that was written for University of Maryland for my bachelor's thesis in the summer of 2025. My argument is very simple. I don't need a bunch of slides, this is the only one. Secular critical pedagogy is powerful at exposing oppression and awakening critical consciousness, but it does not adequately answer one deeper question. What is human freedom actually for? This question matters because education does not end when a student learns how to critique society. A student may become deeply aware of injustice, yet still remain morally and existentially unanchored. My claim is that liberation itself is incomplete. Without a metaphysical compass, it can leave the learner directionless. And Islam, by contrast, offers not only a critique of injustice, but a coherent vision of truth, of purpose, and of human flourishing. Paulo Freire's critical pedagogy has had enormous influence in education, and for good reason, sure. Freire challenged what he calls the banking model of education, where students are treated as passive recipients and teachers simply are depositing information into them. And so against that, he proposed dialogue, consciousness, reflection, and action. And he understood that education is never neutral. Education either oppresses or it liberates. And that insight is genuinely valuable. But here is where my question begins. What happens after the student is liberated? What happens once the learner sees through ideology and recognizes the structures shaping the world around them? Freire gives us this language of awakening, but he doesn't give us a sufficient account of our ultimate orientation. He gives us this language of emancipation, but there's no stable account of transcendence, of metaphysical truth, of final human purpose. So, in other words, critical pedagogy tells us very effectively what to resist, but it's much less clear about what, in the deepest sense, we're meant to become. The framework of secular critical pedagogy, of course, is bounded in materialism. Human fulfillment is often treated as something achievable merely through political and social transformation alone. But that's exactly what I'm challenging. If the human being is more than just a political subject, and if our deepest needs are not merely material, but they're existential, then liberation from oppressive systems cannot be the final educational aim. Liberation from is not the same thing as liberation towards. And that is where Islamic epistemology becomes very essential to the argument. In the secular secular educational frameworks, truth tends to be grounded in two primary sources: in empiricism, what can be observed and tested, and then social constructivism, what communities negotiate and accept. And both have their place, of course. But Islam does not deny the senses. Islam does not reject reason, but it insists that something is missing if knowledge is restricted to those two domains alone. Islamic epistemology rests on a triad: aql, his, wahi, reason, sense perception, and divine revelation. This third category changes everything. Reason allows us to think, sense perception allows us to observe, but revelation allows us to know what reason and sensation on their own cannot fully secure for us: our origin, our telos, and the moral shape of reality itself. So, to put it simply, secular frameworks can tell us a great deal about the world, sure. But revelation tells us what the world is for and what we are for. That is why Islamic education does not define success simply as autonomy or civic social participation. Its goal is much deeper than that. It aims at tawheed, it aims at adab, at the proper cultivation of the human being in relation to God, to ourself, and to the society. A helpful bridge for me in my work was Fawzia Jelani Williams's work on Islamic critical theory, as she calls it. And what matters in her model is that it preserves the critique, but it grounds it normatively in revelation. That means oppression is not only political or economic. It can also be psychological, it can be moral, it can be spiritual. Because human beings do not suffer only through the external structures. They also suffer through alienation, loneliness, fragmentation, loss of ultimate meaning. And that leads directly to the strongest part of this argument: the connection between religion, psychology, and human well-being. There's a growing body of psychological research that supports the claim that religion is associated with better mental health outcomes. Professor Harold Koenig and his colleagues at Duke University, they found very strong links between religious involvement and better mental health outcomes. From an Islamic point of view, this is not surprising for us, of course. Islam proposes the concept of the fitrah, the natural disposition with which human beings are created, the innate orientation towards truth and towards recognition of the divine. But what makes it especially interesting is that modern cognitive science has begun to point in the same direction, in a similar direction. Justin Barrett's work at Oxford University, and you can find his research in his book called Born Believers, they argue, or they found, both empirically and analytically, that children are naturally predisposed toward belief in a creator and toward teleological explanation. So in other words, human beings seem inclined from very early on to see the world as meaningful, as laden with purpose. And that's a striking convergence. What Islamic theology describes as the fitrah Contemporary Islamic research has, in part, begun to observe empirically. And that matters for education, because if we as human beings are naturally oriented toward transcendence, then any educational model that suppresses that orientation, it could never create neutrality. It can only create distortion. It can only leave a student with the analytical tools, sure, but without ultimate grounding. It can sharpen their critique, but it could never heal their fragmentation. And this is why I argue that secular critical pedagogy does not go far enough. It liberates the mind from domination, but it does not sufficiently orient the soul toward truth. So, what does my synthesis look like? I'm arguing for a synthesis model. I'm not rejecting critical pedagogy wholesale. But my synthesis model is one that preserves the strength of critical pedagogy while connecting it and correcting its metaphysical insufficiency. And my model has three parts. First, liberation from false consciousness, that critical pedagogy. Students should learn to identify injustice. They should learn to analyze the structures of domination, resist dehumanization. And then second, orient that critique through tawheed, through revelation. Critique must be grounded in an account of truth that does not change with ideology or social consensus. Students need more than suspicion. They need a moral and metaphysical center. And then third, we integrate the self. Islamic education doesn't treat the human being as intellect alone. It concerns the harmonization of aql, qalb, wa nafs, the intellect, the heart, and the self. The learner is not just a critic of structures, but a soul in formation. In Islamic terms, the teacher is the murabbi, one who nurtures, disciplines, refines, guides, not authoritarian, but not spiritually neutral either. So the educational end shifts. The goal is no longer just social awareness. It becomes the cultivation of a God-conscious human being who can resist injustice without becoming spiritually unmoored, who can pursue transformation without losing sight of transcendence. So I'll close with this. I think maybe I ran out of time. Critical pedagogy asks an important question. How do we free students from oppressive structures? It's a good question. Islamic educational thought asks another question. Once free, what is the human being for? My argument is that we need both questions, but in the right order. Liberation matters. Justice matters. Critique matters. But if they're severed from metaphysical purpose, they cannot by themselves produce wholeness. Liberation is not enough. Students do not only need freedom from oppression, they need orientation towards truth. They need purpose. And that is what I believe Islamic metaphysical purpose can offer to the conversation on education. Thank you.
Thank you for amazing presentation. Actually, what I take away from your presentation is that only liberation is like a naked soul, and we need to dress our souls with values, right? And as you said, our kids have predisposition to believe in. That's a good point, I think. And like David Hume said, you know, tabula rasa, I think it's overridden anymore, and it is not a valid idea anymore, actually, scientifically. I've read about it. I have a question, by the way. In your model, what is the most important quality a teacher, should embody to guide a student's heart in a secular environment, in a secular school or education field?
It's a great question. As a second grade teacher myself, around 22 8-year-olds every day, I can say that the absolute most important attribute for a teacher to have is sabr, it's patience, of course. You must be able to take every moment, slowly, wisely, to understand that your students are coming into your presence as full humans. They are full human beings. They are coming into your classroom or your madrasa or your musalla with ultimate experiences, everything that they've experienced in their life, no matter what age they are. Their life doesn't start and stop in your presence, in your classroom environment. And so you need to, after having sabr, have deep empathy for their lived experiences, for the funds of knowledge that we call it, that they call it at University of Maryland, that they are coming into the classrooms with, and being able to teach on their level in a way that they understand, and in a way that murabbi, it's in the word, to nurture. It's right there. To be a Rabb, to nurture them is really the most important thing.
Lukman, what would a classroom look like if guided by both approaches? By the way, I am Haytham Al-Khatib, a professor of mathematics at the University of Baltimore. And Melissa, what is an important question in the field that researchers or scholars have not answered yet, and could be your next research study? Ismail, I have one last question. What role should local religious communities play in shaping wellness tourism experiences? Thank you.
I'll go first, I guess. Thank you for your question, Doctor. What does a classroom look like with both aspects, critical consciousness and Islamic metaphysical purpose? It looks like the Quran and the Sunnah. I mean, that's the thing about critical pedagogy. It's no different than what Allah is telling us to do in the Quran over and over. To look at the world around us, to critically think, to analyze the universe, to analyze each other, to analyze the Quran itself, and to affirm it using reason, using those critical skills that we've developed, that He has blessed us with as human beings in our aql, in our intellect. So I think my argument is more so not how do we align these two things together, but more so that if you are a teacher that has become enamored with critical pedagogy, which many have because it is a beautiful emergence of thought, in the last 100 years in the West, but it is not new to us as Muslims. It is not new to us. So for Muslim academics and educators that may have been introduced to this in secular schools like my own in the University of Maryland, where it is a very strongly taught concept, critical theory, critical race theory, critical pedagogy, to not, or to hopefully through my paper and Fawzia Jalani Williams and other papers like it, to know that this is not new to us. That yes, we do need to teach our children and our students to be critically conscious of the world around them, but that it has to be grounded in the original method, which is the method of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the method of the first, the true Murabbi, who was already doing this. So hopefully that answers your question.
Personally, what can we do as a officially as a nonprofit organization for our kids in our home? You mentioned our home. As a nonprofit organization, masjid or mosque or Islamic schools, what can we do? How can we do?
Education. I mean, just educate.
How?
Yeah. Offer classes. Hopefully, people come. And you don't. I think one pitfall that Muslims have fallen into, and Yasser Qadi talks about this, is that we start to ignore this Western thought, this secular thought. We just hand wave it. We never introduce it, and then we send our kids to these institutions where they learn it for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week without us, and we expect them to. I don't know. We expect my daughter's still in high school, but
New
this is a
method.
question. This is a question I'm still wrestling
ما
with.
المسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل ها؟
Yeah, this
There
is
is
this is a question that I'm also still wrestling with. How do I teach my 16-year-old daughter these ideas? How do I protect her from? How do I send her to these schools while protecting her? How do I bring her here to the masjid and offer proper educational endeavors where we are focusing, of course, on Quran and Sunnah, but then also not ignoring these things and using the taking the good and leaving the bad of it, and trying to find these synthesis models. It's still a question. It's a good question, Sheikh, but it's one I'm still wrestling with. We'll have a round table just about that, maybe, inshallah.
First question, thank you. I think pluralism is very important, especially in a context where minority groups are represented. Of course, I don't have a direct experience with these sensitive aspects of lobbying work in the United States, and I understand that it has its own dynamics. I approach the topic mainly from an academic perspective. I would be very happy to talk with you and learn more about these details. Second question, there is actually a significant gap in the literature. Lobbying is often approached in a very pragmatic way. Some minority groups are not seen as very important. This gap can be highlighted. Another important area of study is how these groups can become stronger and more visible within the American political system. Thank you.
Excuse me. The role of local religious communities in organizing health tourism experiences is significant for key destinations as well as for ensuring and peace and security. Local government actually play the most important role both in starting this kind of tourism and in maintaining the momentum once it begins. In the end, and they are the ones who promote to region, to visitors, host them, and best know and represent the beauty of the area. Therefore, local institutions and organizations play a very important role. Thank you.
Any question you would like to ask? We have another one.
Can you hear me? Oh, yep, you can. I have a question for Lokman, actually. It was a really interesting presentation. Thank you for it. The first question is, in your study, you are comparing something related with the physical world, which is the critical pedagogy. It's like something that people actually create by logic and scientific process, and we can deconstruct it and present arguments against it. The second comparison is metaphysical. And we are all Muslim probably here, but we come from different cultures and different Islamic interpretations. So how valid is the comparison between this and the metaphysical world, the critical pedagogy? That's the first one. The second one is, as a Muslim person, what kind of biases you might be introducing into this comparison? Thank you.
These are good questions. Very good questions. Hard questions. Astaghfirullah. In terms of it being valid, I hope it's valid. I hope it's a sound argument, but I think the comparison is valid because both of them address human formation. But critical pedagogy, it lacks, a grounded freedom toward, as I call it in my presentation, in my paper. And metaphysics provides that through the Tawheed and through Tawheed and Adab. So in that way, I hope that it's a valid critique because they both have this same kind of asal of human formation. And then your second question was, what biases might I have? Of course, we struggle with this as academics, right? When we discuss, religious topics, Islamic topics, maybe I'm somewhat a little safer from it because I was not born a Muslim. I was raised in the West, and I was raised within these secular frameworks. But of course, I acknowledge that my experiences are shaped, or my perspective is shaped by Islamic metaphysics. But I aim to present Freire's critique fairly. I love it. I love Freire. And I spent really the first 2 years of my undergrad not understanding what I presented here today. It wasn't until my junior year when I started writing a thesis that and looking into Freire's work that I realized that there was work already being done to kind of counteract it, or other work outside of it, like Sayyid al-Attas, of course, like the father of Islamic educational frameworks, where I realized that, kind of what I told Dr. That we already kind of do this. But I tried to critique it fairly, while arguing that liberation requires that grounded purpose beyond these secular frameworks. So I do my best. I talk to my brother. I have him read my papers. He's an atheist. So I try to hear arguments and try to answer them within my research.
Okay, we're closing our session. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Hatija, for chairing this panel. And I would like to thank the presenters for the insightful presentations. And now we will have a break time. As I have told you, we will move from here. Our kids are going to be here for Yermish Nisan celebration, you know. So maybe after the session, if you have time, you can come and watch them. So we will leave this auditorium. We will be in the second floor in the conference room for the next in-person session. That's going to be about education, media, and cultural transformation, chaired by Dr. Remziya Sechan. And we will have two online sessions as well. So please don't leave the building. It's going to be the same building. We will be in the second floor for tea and coffee. And we would like to see all of you there. Hope to see you there. The sessions are going to start at 11, but you'll be there at 10:50. It will be the best. Now it is 10:41, right? So, yeah, see you.